Hey guys, this is Kay coming to you from the grassland habitat where my friend Jerry lives. I'm a little bit afraid of lions eating me, so we're going to get through this really quickly. But Jerry is going to help me tell you guys about the different animal habitats and talk about your animal habitat research. So yeah, let's go because I'm really afraid of these noises that I'm hearing, and I don't want to hear a lion. Okay, so as promised, Jerry and I are going to go through and tell you about the different types of animal habitats and give you some helpful tips about your animal habitat research for your report. So let's go because we both don't want to get eaten by a lion. So, what are animal habitats? Basically, they're the places where animals live. So, they provide the animal with the food, water, shelter, and space that they need to survive. And almost every place on Earth is actually a habitat. There are lots of different types of habitats. Another word for habitat is called a biome, and I'll tell you why that's important a little bit later on. So we have a grassland habitat, which is where I am hanging out with Jerry today. We have a polar habitat, which is where I was on Monday hanging out with Patty. And that also includes the tundra. Then we have the desert habitat, the mountain habitat, the forest habitat, which is actually a temperate forest habitat because we also have a rainforest habitat. Then we have freshwater habitat and then a saltwater habitat. So we have lots of different habitats. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I am today with Jerry, which is the grassland habitat. And basically, it receives more rain than desert, but less rain than forest, which is why most of the plants that are around us are grasses or trees that don't need a lot of water. Okay, every continent except for Antarctica actually has grasslands, and 1/4 of the planet is covered by these grasslands. So they have grasslands everywhere except for Antarctica, of course, because it's cold. The next one that I'm going to quickly tell you guys about is the polar and tundra habitats, and I'm putting them together even though they are a little bit different. So the polar habitats are found at the top and bottom of the planet, at the north and south poles, obviously. That's why they're called the polar regions. We know that it's really cold and windy at the poles. It actually can get to minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit in the Arctic and minus 129 degrees Fahrenheit in the Antarctic. Okay, so it's freezing. You see lots of snow at the poles, but there's not a lot of rain. And an interesting fact is that Antarctica and parts of the Arctic are actually considered deserts because of the fact that there's no rain. Here's where we introduce the tundra. So it's too cold and dry for trees to grow in a lot of places in the Arctic. And basically that's because that below the first layer of, like below the surface of the ground, there's a layer of ice, which is called permafrost. But in some places, which are called tundras, and animals like caribou live in tundras, they have a thin layer of soil, and that allows grass and moss to grow. So we have the bunny, it's probably a hare in the corner, and that lives in the tundra. And then we have the caribou as well that live in the tundra. But all the other animals, they live in polar regions. This is the one that we're most familiar with in the UAE, the desert habitat. So deserts are the driest place on Earth. Some of them get really hot in the day, but then they can get cold at night. And some deserts, like I just told you about, are always cold. The biggest desert in the world is actually Antarctica. So even though there's like snow and ice, it doesn't rain. And it doesn't really snow that much in Antarctica either, which makes it a desert because of the lack of rainfall. So desert animals to live there, they have a lot of different adaptations that help them because they need to be able to survive without much water. And most desert animals actually stay underground or below shady things during the day. And many of them come out to hunt for food at night because it's a lot cooler. Because remember, deserts are hot in the day, but then at night they get colder. So then we have water habitats, and there are two types of water habitats, but water habitats actually make up for most of the habitats of all of the animals in the world. So we have rivers, creeks, lakes, ponds, and streams. Those are freshwater habitats. And freshwater habitats, they are homes to more than 100,000 species, so different animals of plants and animals. So they have like snails, worms, turtles, frogs, alligators, beavers, snakes, and some insects. And they even have river dolphins and a spider. So they all live in fresh water. Then for our saltwater habitats, we have oceans, seas, salt lakes, salt marshes, and saltwater swamps. And 1 million species of animals live in the ocean. So 1 million species of animals live in saltwater habitats, okay? And most of them are invertebrates, which we learned 95% of all of the species on Earth. So all of the animals on Earth are actually invertebrates. So the last one that I'm going to tell you guys about is the rainforest habitats, and there are lots of animals that live in the rainforest. In fact, more than half of the world's animals live here, and there are rainforests everywhere. So there's rainforests in South America, which we talked about with Peru. There's rainforests in Asia, which is where orangutans live, and our favorite Bengal tiger, okay, which we're learning about right now in India. And there are rainforests in Africa as well. So South America, Asia, Africa. There's even a rainforest in British Columbia, where I'm from, and that has the world's most rarest bear in the world, which is called a Kermode bear, or it's a spirit bear, and that lives in the rainforest in British Columbia. Okay. Now, scientists believe that many of the plants and animals in the rainforest haven't even been discovered yet. So maybe on your next trip to the rainforest, you guys can discover a new plant or animal that we didn't know about, because the rainforest has 4 layers. So the first layer is called the emergent layer, and it's the top of the very tallest trees. So it's the top layer. Then the next one is the canopy, and most of the animals that have been studied actually live in the canopy because that's where they can get their food. So their fruit, their seeds, even the insects, okay? So most of the animals in the rainforest live in the canopy. Then the layer below is called the understory, and that's just kind of like, so if you think about like the canopy is like an umbrella, so it's kind of like the part underneath your umbrella. But then the last layer is called the forest floor, and that's where, a lot of things that we don't know live because it's so dark, okay? So that is the rainforest habitat. So today you will be researching your habitat section for your animal report. You actually have a second job to do as well today, but I will go through and tell you how to do your habitat research and help give you some questions to ask Google. So remember to go through and check the websites that I have given you. Your questions that you should be asking, okay, is what type is your animal's habitat? So if we go back to the different habitats that we have, you need to choose one of these ones here, okay? So you have grassland, polar, desert, mountain, forest, freshwater, saltwater, and rainforest. So you need to choose one of those to talk about or to write, okay? You remember you need to have at least 4 sentences, okay? So you should be able to find, I've given you 5 questions here, and we'll go through and see if we can find them for Jerry, okay? Now, remember to keep your research list of the websites that you have used, or if you've used books, that you need to write the title of the book and the author, because you need to have this for your bibliography. So we are going to, I'm just going to run through some of the questions, and then we can find the examples. So I know that my Jerry, the giraffe, he lives in a grassland habitat. So already I've answered the first question, which is right there. What type is your animal's habitat? Okay. So if I go into my giraffe facts, which is on sciencekids.com, I can find that a giraffe's habitat is usually found in African savannas, grasslands, or open woodlands. So I know that I'm right. So the grassland habitat is the first one. And the second thing I'm going to write is that they live in Africa. Okay? Because I know that they live in I know they live in Africa, but we are going to check that out. Africa. Okay, and in Google, I'm going to put my next question, which is what country or countries does your animal live in? So for you, you can put a region, or you can put, so I know that it's the African region. It's actually in the, if you look on the second one, it says the sub-Saharan region of Africa. So I'm going to put that in. Okay, so I know that they live in Africa, and I know that they live in the sub-Saharan region. So I have the country, or the continent, sorry, and then I have the region. I have the habitat, the continent, the region, and I'm going to find out in Google, I'm going to type in what countries can we find giraffes, and it's right there for me. So the giraffe is native to many African countries, and I'm just going to take all of those places and put them into my research documents. Okay, so I have that all ready to go. So those are all of the countries where I know that they live. And remember, you just have to write notes, so you can have little bullet points like this, or lines, which is what I'm doing. Okay, so that has actually answered my biome. And remember, I told you at the start that biome is another fancy word for habitat. So I've chosen, I know that Jerry lives in the grassland habitat, so that's done. I found the geographical location. So I found the continent, I found the region, and I found the countries that they live in. Okay, so now I need to find out what is the climate or weather like in a grassland habitat. So I'm actually going to go onto Britannica, and I'm going to see what they can tell me about the weather. Okay, look at this. The climate of savannas is extreme. Temperatures are high and there are wet and dry seasons. During the dry season, savannas get little rain. So that's perfect. So I know that it's hot, okay, but that there's also wet and rainy season. So I'm going to put that in for my climate and weather check off. So I have that done, okay. And then the next question that I can answer is what other plants or animals share this habitat with your animal? So I'm going to just have a look through and see, and look at this. The large animals that live in tropical grasslands include, okay, well, obviously kangaroos don't live there, but I can definitely take that. Let's just have a look through the second one, which is Dexter's, and let's see what we have found here. Animals in the savannah. This is perfect. So what I can put is that there are all of these animals here. That helps. So I'm going to take all of those animals, so zebras, everything, and I'm going to add that because I know that that is what else, so the other animals that live there with giraffes. Okay, and then I'm going to see if there's anything else that I can put. Look at this. The giraffe uses its height to spot predators. That's good. Okay, and look, here's some plants. So then I can add this part for plants. So obviously it's covered with different things, but there's also different trees, including the tree that giraffes love to eat. So I'll put that in my notes as well. Okay, then it's covered with different grasses. So that takes care of this question, which is what plants and animals share my habitat with. And then the last one, what does your animal use for shelter? Well, you know what? I'm not really sure. So I'm going to put that into Google. What does a giraffe use for shelter? Look at that first question. So giraffes make their home in wide open grasslands or savanna, which are grasslands with some trees. Okay, so basically giraffes need wide open space. So they don't make like a den, which is like what a bear would have, or they don't live in a cave. So they like to live in wide open spaces so they can see where the animals are coming to attack them. So I can put that in as well. Let's just see if we might not have space, but then I will put that giraffes don't actually need shelter. So if I could spell giraffes, So giraffes live in wide open grassland areas. Okay, so that is how to answer those questions. So hopefully that will help you. Please use these questions to guide you. There are, as I said, there are 5, and you can literally go through and take this with the reports as well. Remember, you can do what continent does your animal live in, what region does your animal live in, so I'll add those in so you have those as well. Okay, and remember to keep your research list so you can write down what you've used. Okay, your second thing that you need to do for me today is to draw your animal in its habitat. So while I've been here in the savannah, I've actually done some drawings. Okay, I obviously didn't draw this. This was done by a girl named Maria, and she did a drawing for us to show you what you could do. These 2 are just drawings that I found, but I wish I could draw this well. So basically, in your box, you're just going to draw as detailed a picture as you possibly can about your animal in its habitat. So if you did a polar bear, I want to see you drawing a polar bear. If you did a giraffe like me, obviously, I want to see the giraffe with its full habitat behind it. Okay, so here we have the sun, we have some grass, some rocks, obviously, you know, the ground, and look, there's a bird here. Here we have the sun with the grassland. Here we have Mount Kilimanjaro with the trees that they like to eat. So you can make it as detailed as you want. You can even label it. So maybe you put a picture of a lion over here, and then you could draw a line and label it saying that it's like a predator for the giraffe or something like that. Or maybe you label the trees that they like to eat and put this is their food or something, okay? So try to make it as detailed as you can. Both your research and animal habitat pictures are due tomorrow, but if you need more time, you can actually submit them for Sunday so you can spend all weekend doing your best work. I really just want these beautiful pictures to be your very best work, and you can either do that on the page that I have sent home to you today, or just on a blank piece of paper if you have one, okay? Make sure that it's colored and detailed. And yeah, I guess we'll go back and see how Jerry's doing and see if the lions come by. All right, that's it from, uh-oh. I don't like the sound of that. Jerry and I are going to go. We got to run away. I'm pretty sure this is a lion sound that I'm hearing. So good luck on your research, and I can't wait to see it. Bye.